A brown-haired man and red-haired woman dote on their newborn, a proud child of the emblem family. Amidst a baby's sudden cry, the parents hope she brings harmony to the feuding gray and emblem families. The red-haired infant flails with surprising energy, startling her parents with her vigorous movements. Laughing at her strength, the parents envision their daughter using her power to help many people. Trapped in a tiny body, the baby's spirit reels in shock, wondering why she has been reincarnated here. Memories of her past life as a black-haired investigator chasing her parents' killer flicker through her mind. She recalls the desperate moment she screamed for the criminal to stop during their high-stakes chase. A sudden, loud honk blares as she runs into the blinding headlights of an oncoming vehicle. Back in the present, Circea's frustrated wails about her lost target are mistaken for healthy lung capacity. As her parents admire her voice, Circea fumes internally about the bastard who escaped her in her previous life. Time passes, and a group of doting maids marvels at how tiny and adorable the young Circea has become. The red-haired toddler sits among flowers, looking every bit the perfect, innocent, noble daughter. Surrounded by squealing, affectionate maids, Circea starts to think this new life might be quite sweet after all. The head maid bursts in with a panicked warning, demanding order before the lord arrives. Servants gossip about the distant grandfather who hasn't visited once, leaving Circea feeling quite uncomfortable. Lying in her crib, Circea ponders the coldness of a grandfather who refuses to meet her. Despite the family drama, Circea finds a moment of peace and decides she is perfectly happy for now. Chaos erupts as the staff frantically cleans for the Lord's sudden arrival while the master is away. A maid rushes to Circea's side, calling her name as the toddler wonders about the sudden commotion. The panicked maid informs Circea that her grandfather is arriving any second, making the situation an emergency. Servants are called to assemble, as the maid begs the pretty toddler not to cry during the meeting. Left alone, Circea feels a wave of uncharacteristic nervousness about the kind of person her grandfather might be. The household staff lines up in rigid formation as a stern steward oversees the impending arrival. A massive man with a framing red beard and a blue military uniform makes a grand, intimidating entrance. The imposing lord demands to know the location of his daughter Melercia's child with a harsh, booming voice. A terrifying purple aura erupts from the lord, casting a menacing shadow over the trembling toddler. Staring at the giant, Circea realizes he looks far more dangerous than any criminal she faced before. When the butler introduces her as an emblem, the Lord's fury flares, terrifying everyone in the room. The Lord's roar about naming the girl without permission sends the butler staggering back, coughing up blood. Circea gasps in horror as her grandfather's sheer presence causes the butler to bleed without any physical contact. Their eyes meet in a chilling stare, and Circea feels the weight of her grandfather's overwhelming, terrifying gaze. While Circea trembles in fear, the Lord looks at her and wonders if the scrawny child hasn't eaten. The butler insists the young lady eats well, while the Lord remains skeptical of her small stature. Calling the butler a scrawny anchovy, the Lord departs abruptly, leaving a very confused Circea behind. Circea's worried babbling touches the butler, who is surprised by the toddler's concern for his well-being. Revealing a hidden vial, the butler explains he uses fake blood to manipulate the Lord's sympathy during outbursts. Circea is genuinely impressed by the butler's clever and theatrical methods for surviving her grandfather's temper. Realizing her grandfather seemingly hates her, Circea adopts a serious expression to brainstorm a survival countermeasure. Melcia returns home in a panic, calling for her father, while Circea reaches out to her mother. The butler suggests that the Lord fled specifically to avoid being caught doting on his adorable granddaughter. Melercia erupts into triumphant laughter, declaring her father's quick departure as a complete victory for her. Approaching the crib, Melercia gleefully claims that the Lord's retreat was a total defeat for his cold exterior. Melercia insists the Lord only came because he missed her, but Circia remains entirely unconvinced by the theory. As her mother continues her boisterous victory laugh, Circia stares in silent, bewildered confusion at the logic. Melercia hoists Circia into the air, chirping about how much her grandfather truly loves her. Circia wails in protest as she is lifted, completely rejecting the idea that her grandfather's terror was affection. Cuddling her clever daughter, Melercia fails to notice that they are not communicating effectively at all. The butler serves a tray of rare, heavy meats, claiming they are gifts of love from her grandfather. Circia stares at the mountain of rich, organ-heavy food with a look of absolute, quivering disgust. Abandoning the table of lavish delicacies, Circia sprints away from her grandfather's overwhelming and terrifying love. The butler scrambles away in a panic, leaving a lavish spread behind in a blurred, frantic rush. Fleeing with a frustrated wail, Circia fumes about the Lord calling her a scrawny anchovy before his departure. In a memory, the silver-haired Dana introduces the young lady Circia to her future fiancé, young Master Enoch. Circia recalls the boy who became the greatest headache of her life, her lifelong nemesis named Enoch. Determined and serious, young Enoch takes a firm step forward, his blue eyes filled with a cold focus. The scene shifts to a grand, multi-spired palace as Circia admits her favorite household member is her father. During a quiet meal, Benedict warmly asks Circia if she has finished eating her various gourmet dishes. Reaching out with a happy cry, Circia welcomes her father home and ignores the rest of the food. Benedict scoops Circia into his arms, understanding that even the best meals can become tiring for a toddler. Circia claps her hands and cheers in agreement, delighted that her father finally understands her culinary plight. The sun shines on Benedict's handsome face as Circia admires her father's perfect and gentle facial features. The butler chases after them in a cold sweat, desperate to serve the dozen courses remaining for lunch. Benedict reads a storybook to Circia, who finds the cliché happily ever after tale surprisingly fun to hear. A quick nod and a loud shout from Circia confirms she wants her father to keep reading more. The butler interrupts their bonding time with news that the family head is arriving earlier than expected today. Benedict assumes his father missed Circia, while the toddler stares back with a look of pure, smoldering disbelief. Circia fumes internally about her grandfather's arrogant and overbearing nature, despite his supposed love for her. Benedict gently pets Circia's red hair, trying to soothe her before the meeting with the stern family head. Encouraging Circia to trust him and listen, Benedict tries to bridge the gap between his daughter and grandfather. A glittering display of rare delicacies fills the table, some of which required a personal hunt to obtain. Circia feels a twinge of guilt, imagining her aging grandfather traveling far and wide just to feed her. The family head, Jade Grey, arrives with a scowl, criticizing Circia's scrawny limbs like they were rotten branches. Benedict politely welcomes the family head, while a terrified Circia quivers in her father's protective, gentle grasp. Jade Grey scolds them for the state of the food and remarks on Circia's mother's insolent attitude. Enraged by the insult, Circia's face turns red as she screams internal insults at her jerk of a grandfather. Circia's expression goes blank as she stares up at Benedict, processing the harsh words from her formidable relative. Jade Grey clears his throat and awkwardly asks Benedict if Melercia's daughter has finally started walking yet. Standing tall in his blue military uniform, the family head waits impatiently for an answer regarding the toddler. Circia is mortified when Benedict reveals she already walks well, making the grandfather's rush feel entirely unnecessary. Shock and a dark, crackling aura consume Jade Grey as he realizes he missed Circea's very first steps. A heavy, rhythmic rumbling sound begins to vibrate through the floor, catching the household off guard. Fearing a sudden earthquake, Circia clings to her father, while Benedict calmly reassures her that everything is fine. Engulfed in a terrifying red aura of grief and fury, Jade Grey laments missing such a vital milestone. Calling out for his rival, Jade Grey suddenly sprints away at superhuman speed, leaving a cloud of dust. Benedict and Circia watch in stunned silence, wondering how any human could possibly run with such incredible velocity. Eating her soup, Circia considers that while her grandfather is bad with words, he might actually care. Circia dines happily while the butler dances in the background, celebrating the successful end of the grandfather's visit. The sun shines brightly over the sprawling, blue-roofed towers and magnificent architecture of the Grey ducal house. Dressed in a frilly blue gown with a large white bow, Circe prepares for her next social challenge. Melercia and Benedict dote on their baby angel, while Circe finds their exaggerated praise entirely humiliating. Melercia worries that young Enoch will fall in love at first sight and suffer from bedridden lovesickness. Realizing she is about to meet her fiancé, Circe recoils in shock, her small hands clutching her hair. Circe flails and wails in protest, desperately wanting to do anything else besides meet her supposed future husband. A maid formally announces the arrival of Dana and the young master, Enoch Grey, at the estate. The silver-haired Dana enters the room, accompanied by a man carrying the quiet, silver-haired young master Enoch. Melercia and Dana embrace with joyful laughter, thrilled to reunite their families through their two young children. Circe looks on with a skeptical and unimpressed gaze, already dreading the interaction with her silver-haired nemesis. Melercia turns to Dana, excitedly mentioning that it is finally time to introduce her lovely granddaughter. Dana jokingly suggests taking Circe home immediately, but Benedict quickly pulls the toddler away with a refusal. As Melercia prompts Dana to introduce Enoch, the silver-haired woman's expression shifts into a more serious, shadowed look. Benedict bows politely while holding a silver-haired baby boy, responding to a summons from an unseen speaker. The silver-haired baby, Enoch, lets out a small cry as a sparkling, celestial aura surrounds his delicate figure. Circe observes Enoch from a distance, finding his intense, light blue gaze unsettling and strangely familiar. Melercia introduces the toddlers, but Circe is overcome by a wave of nausea just by looking at the boy. The two mothers, Dana and Melercia, find the children's awkward first meeting absolutely adorable and giggle with delight. Circe's dizziness intensifies, her frustration boiling over as she considers landing a physical blow on her future fiancé. With a sudden, forceful strike, Circe punches Enoch right in the face, shocking the adults into a stunned silence. Circe looks startled by her own outburst, while Enoch lies on the floor, processing the unexpected physical assault. Melercia gasps in horror, clutching her face as she witnesses her daughter's uncharacteristic and violent behavior. Benedict and the other man stand frozen in shock, unable to believe the scene unfolding before their very eyes. A determined, dark aura surrounds young Enoch as he recovers and begins crawling towards Circe with a chilling focus. Circia braces herself, fearing that the silver-haired boy is about to retaliate and hit her back in anger.
Despite her fear, Circia puts on a brave face as Enoch lunges at her with a frustrated, childish shout.
Using her memories as a former detective, Circia effortlessly dodges Enoch's clumsy strike, leaving him hitting nothing but air. Enoch faceplants onto the carpet with a loud cry, completely outmaneuvered by the toddler, who stands proudly over him. Smirking, Circia dismisses the boy's speed as child's play, confident in her superior reflexes from her previous adult life. An awkward silence falls over the room as the adults stare down at the humiliated boy and triumphant girl. Dana picks up the wailing Enoch, scolding him for his poor behavior, while the boy kicks and screams in protest. Circia laughs internally at the boy's temper tantrum, finding his defeat even more satisfying than she originally imagined. Malucia scolds Circia for her violence, while the toddler internally defends herself, claiming the boy simply tripped and fell. Determined to fix the situation, Malucia lifts her daughter and insists she apologize and make up with Enoch immediately. The mothers laugh off the incident, though Enoch remains visibly fuming while being held in Dana's protective arms. Circia is told to blow a kiss of apology, but the proximity to Enoch's face makes her stomach churn. A sudden, colorful burst of rainbow puke erupts from Circia's mouth, landing directly onto the silver-haired boy's shocked face. Malucia and Dana turn pale with absolute mortification, completely stunned by the second, more disgusting disaster of the day. Later, tucked into bed, Circia cringes at her own embarrassing behavior, but can't help feeling a smug sense of victory. Benedict and a dizzy Melmercia stand by their grand carriage, still reeling from the disastrous meeting at the palace. As the sun sets over the estate, Circia reflects on how she likely disappointed every member of her noble family. Looking out over the balcony, the red-haired toddler worries that her future in the Emblem family is now permanently tarnished. A booming voice suddenly interrupts her thoughts as her grandfather, Jade Grey, arrives demanding to see his lovely granddaughter. Sprinting forward with a joyful expression, Jade Grey declares himself incredibly proud of Circia for punching the Grey Brat. The massive lord spins a terrified Circia through the air, celebrating her violent spirit as a sign of true family pride. Years later, a maid in a green dress frantically searches the lush garden for the missing young lady, Circia. A grown Circia hides behind the trees, annoyed that her personal maid, Jessia, has already tracked her down so quickly. Determined to skip the impending banquet, Circia looks around for a more secure hiding spot deep within the forest. Jessia spots her and scolds Circia for ruining her incredibly expensive designer dress by sitting on the dirty ground. Circia reacts with shock to the dress's exorbitant price tag, realizing she's practically wearing the value of a whole house. The maid departs in a huff, leaving a guilty Circia to wander alone through the sun-drenched, emerald green woods. Circia sneaks through the undergrowth, her primary goal being to avoid any social interaction with her lifelong nemesis, Enoch. She reflects on her deep-seated discomfort with Enoch, noting that despite seeing him often, her intense dislike never faded. Her ears perk up at the sound of a nearby stream, providing a perfect escape from her duties and family problems. Labeled a lucky girl by her own thoughts, Circia sprints toward the refreshing water to wash off the day's stress. Kicking up dust, Circia runs toward freedom, dreaming of a peaceful nap in the sun away from everyone. Her eyes widen in surprise as she reaches the water's edge and discovers she isn't as alone as she thought. The silver-haired Enoch, now a handsome teenager, sits calmly by the stream, his cold gaze meeting Circia's shocked expression. Both teens immediately erupt in an argument, each accusing the other of being the reason they tried to hide here. Circia rages about the gross encounter, while Enoch remains stoic, both clearly disgusted by their forced proximity near the water. Pointing an accusing finger, Circia demands Enoch leave her spot, but the boy refuses to budge from the riverside. Enoch casually reclines on the grass, using cold logic to prove he arrived first, and that Circia should be the one to depart. Fuming in silence, Circia is infuriated that her adult mind keeps losing arguments to the teenage jerk she calls a fiancé.
Circia notices an unusual item strapped to Enoch's waist as he relaxes in the sunny forest.
Stomping toward him, Circia demands an explanation for why he is carrying such a dangerous object. Enoch sits up, confused, while Circia points an accusing finger at the sheathed weapon on his belt. With a sudden zoom on the hilt, Enoch explains the family head personally gifted him the sword. When asked about his training, Enoch confirms that becoming a knight is his duty as a Grey. Enoch turns the question back on Circia, asking why she hasn't started her own swordsmanship training yet. Circia considers his words, realizing his natural interest in weaponry stems from his lineage of legendary knights. Recalling her past life as a detective, Circia reflects on the exhaustion of a life spent constantly fighting. Circia bluntly rejects the idea of training, claiming the hard and painful life of a warrior isn't for her. Outraged, Enoch grabs Circia by her dress, shouting that she cannot simply refuse her noble responsibilities. Enoch continues his intense lecture, insisting that learning to use a sword is an obvious requirement for her. Circia threatens to hit and puke on him again if he doesn't release her from his grasp immediately. Startled, Enoch retreats several paces, allowing Circia to finally breathe, while he repeats his question from a distance. Enoch fumes in silence, his face flushed with anger as he continues to stare down his defiant fiancé. Enoch mocks Circia, claiming her lack of training will make her both incredibly boring and pathetically weak. The silver-haired boy predicts the total decline of the Emblem family, because they have no future knights. Consumed by a murderous red aura, Circia erupts in fury and screams an insult at the arrogant boy. As the argument reaches a boiling point, the red-haired toddler prepares to unleash her physical wrath once again. Engulfed in a terrifying, crackling aura of rage, Circia prepares to strike the silver-haired bastard for his insults. Realizing the gravity of his mistake, Enoch reels back in terror as Circia confronts him with fiery eyes. Circia delivers a devastating punch, declaring that his insulting words have earned him a very well-deserved beating. In the middle of the bright meadow, Circia mercilessly pummels the 7-year-old Enoch while he wails in pain. Later, Mercia punishes her daughter by making her hold a heavy wooden bucket high above her head. Circia tearfully agrees she was wrong, though she internally fumes that her mother never asked her side. Frustrated and tired, Circia complains that the shrimp-sized Enoch deserved the beating for his disrespectful attitude. Melercia looms over her daughter, scolding Circia for her complete lack of remorse after the violent confrontation. A loud bang sounds as Jade Grey bursts into the room, startling the exhausted and tearful toddler. Jade Grey lifts Circia high, celebrating her glorious victory over the Grey brat, despite Melcia's protests. Circia begins to sob, overwhelmed by her grandfather's support, while she reflects on the boy's harsh words. Her grandfather asks why she is crying as he gently holds the emotional red-haired toddler. Wailing loudly, Circia explains how Enoch claimed she would become insignificant without any formal combat training. Circia laments the supposed decline of the Emblem family, tearfully insisting she has pride in her noble name. Jade Grey laughs heartily, hugging her and declaring her the world's smallest and most noble little emblem. Melercia watches the interaction, realizing Circia was actually defending the family's honor from the Grey boy's insults. Tucked into bed, Circia rubs her sore arm and continues to feel upset about her mother's earlier scolding. A sudden creak sounds at the door, catching Circia off guard in the middle of the night. Milrecia enters the dark room quietly, believing her daughter has already fallen into a deep sleep. Sitting beside her, Milrecia asks if Sir was hurt because her mother scolded her without asking any questions. Milrecia applies a cool, soothing patch to Circia's arm while revealing that Enoch was also severely scolded. Milrecia admits that both mothers pushed too hard, hurting their children in an attempt to force family harmony. Apologizing sincerely, Milrecia kisses Circia's forehead and declares that her daughter is more precious than any alliance. Milrecia strokes Circia's hand, attributing the girl's anger to the blossoming pride she feels for the emblem name. With a warm smile, the red-haired mother bids her daughter a peaceful sleep before leaving the room. A heavy thump sounds as Milrecia departs, leaving Circia alone in the quiet, blue-lit bedroom to reflect. Circia stares wide-eyed at her patched arm, confused by the lingering feeling of dread after her mother's visit. Clenching the sheets, Circia wonders why such a kind and warm expression felt so intensely frightening to her. A memory of her past life surfaces, showing a battered young girl in an orphanage with abusive parents. The girl's perspective shifts to a man in a suit, promising to treat her preciously as part of his family. Reaching out, the young girl happily takes the man's hand, believing she has finally found a loving home. In the present, Circia ducks under a yellow police line in a past life memory, startling a nearby patrolling officer. A traumatic memory reveals a young girl being held back at a crime scene involving her own parents. Heavy rain falls as the narrative describes a supposed suicide that the young girl refused to believe. In her previous life, the brown-haired woman worked tirelessly as a detective to uncover the hidden truth. Her official police ID confirms a life dedicated to justice after a childhood spent without parental love. Back in the present, Circia lies awake in bed, terrified that her new, kind mother might suddenly disappear. The red-haired child reflects on the profound affection she receives now, something she never experienced in her past. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Circia smiles at the thought of finally having a mother who truly cares for her. Her heart feels lighter as she processes her earlier anger toward Enoch while resting in her quiet room. Circia fumes over Enoch's arrogance, annoyed that he thinks a little wooden sword makes him so special. A sudden sense of peace washes over her as she enjoys the refreshing, moonlit night air from her balcony. Rustling sounds from the garden catch her attention, leading her to investigate a strange presence in the shadows. Looking down, she spots a silver-haired boy sitting alone among the bushes, his back turned toward her. Recognizing the intruder, Circia realizes it is her troublesome fiancé lurking in the dark gardens late at night. Circia discovers a battered and bruised Enoch kneeling in the grass, looking far from his usual confident self. Surprised by her sudden appearance, Enoch questions why she is out, while Circia demands the same answer. Looking dejected and wounded, Enoch claims he is merely pulling weeds to pass the time in solitude. Circia stares at him with deep skepticism, finding his humble excuse and bruised face hard to reconcile. Dismissing his odd behavior, Circia begins to walk away, while Enoch frantically tries to get her to stay. Enoch warns her that people are searching for her, and she will be caught soon if she lingers. Stopping in her tracks, Circia notices Enoch's unusual hesitation, wondering what has caused this shift in him. To her absolute shock, the silver-haired boy lowers his head and offers a quiet, stuttering apology. Enoch explains that his outburst earlier was a lapse in judgment triggered by her refusal to learn swordsmanship. Circia remains frozen in surprise as the boy she considers a rival continues his uncharacteristic soft apology. Moving closer, Enoch reaches out to her, his expressive blue eyes filled with a sudden, intense sincerity. Enoch reacts with startled confusion as the red-haired girl approaches him further in the dim blue light. The silver-haired boy holds Circea's face between his hands, looking more vulnerable than she has ever seen him. The air grows thick with tension as the two children share a surprisingly emotional and quiet moment together. Circia abruptly shoves him away with a loud gasp, demanding he get off her and leave her alone. Enoch defends his actions, claiming he was only worried for her safety after their earlier violent fight. He urges her to go home and stop apologizing, his face flushed with embarrassment and lingering frustration. Enoch pretends not to care about her destination, yet warns she won't see her mother for a while. Circia mocks his defensive attitude, noting that despite his loud denials, he is clearly sulking about something. Circia watches him closely, her expression unreadable as she tries to decipher the silver-haired boy's true motives. Leaning in, Circia teases Enoch by asking if he's actually crying over being scolded by his family. Enoch explodes in anger, revealing his mother was banished from the estate because of their forced engagement. He describes his grueling training and blistered hands, all done for the sake of seeing his mother again. Enoch shares a desperate secret, explaining his grandfather's promise to let his mother return if he wins. Rising to his feet, Enoch insists that Circia must also learn the sword to maintain their family's honor. The silver-haired boy stares at her with raw intensity, pleading with his eyes for her to understand him. Circia is left stunned, finally realizing the heavy burden Enoch has been carrying in secret this entire time. Enoch steps closer, his gaze unwavering as he waits for her response to his shocking, emotional revelation. He shouts that she is a genius with a natural gift for fighting, refusing to accept her apathy. Enoch mocks her daily habits, claiming there is no way he could lose to someone who just plays. Circea's blood boils with rage as she realizes Enoch's primary talent is simply infuriating everyone around him. Enoch recoils in shock as Circea's hand trembles with a visible aura of pure, unadulterated fury. Pointing a finger at him, Circia finally snaps and accepts his challenge with a fiery, competitive spirit. Enoch watches her depart, feeling satisfied that he has finally ignited the fighting spirit his rival needed. Both children reflect on the complicated bond forming between them as they prepare to face the future. Circia delivers a powerful, shouting strike against a training dummy, beginning her journey to prove him wrong. With a look of absolute determination, Circia swings her training sword, ready to conquer her new path. Circia swings her wooden sword with intense focus, determined to master the combat forms her instructor demands. A sharp crunching sound echoes through the air, leaving the black-haired instructor visibly stunned by the toddler's raw power. Exhausted and panting, Circia finally stops her training as her instructor pleads with the young lady to take a break. Sir Lawrence wipes his brow in distress, noting that her fiery rage at the mention of the gray name proves she truly carries emblem blood. Leaning in with an intense gaze, the instructor asks if her singular goal is truly to defeat the young Enoch. Circia declares her fierce intention to pummel Enoch into the ground, her golden eyes burning with competitive spirit. Sir Lawrence warns that fighting with pure rage only leads to defeat, shocking the girl who refuses to accept any loss. To build her discipline, the instructor orders 5 more laps, prompting an exhausted and wailing Circia to comply. As she sprints across the dusty training grounds, Circia reflects that losing to Enoch would be a fate far worse than death. Gasping for breath, the red-haired child pushes her small body to the limit, fueled by her intense rivalry. In the palace, Melercia and her husband share a moment of quiet concern for their daughter's extreme dedication. Jade Grey laughs boisterously at his granddaughter's spirit, ignoring Melercia's sharp reprimand for encouraging the girl's aggressive behavior. News of the reignited rivalry between the two powerful families spreads quickly to the local tavern, sparking intense gossip. The commoners toast to the brewing conflict, eager to see who will win the prestigious position of Imperial Guard Captain. The scene shifts to the Grand Imperial Palace, where a rich red robe brushes against the polished marble floors. A blond man in a long, regal cape walks toward the throne, his presence commanding absolute silence in the hall. Emperor Martian Leopoldo Rutinus settles onto his golden throne, his expression unreadable as he prepares to receive a report. An aide informs the emperor that the rivalry between the Emblem and Grey families has officially turned into a public spectacle. The emperor dismisses concerns about the danger of the Mitro forest, coldly asserting his authority over his trembling subordinate. To further his entertainment, the emperor suggests granting the competing children an audience with the future sovereign. In a sunlit library, a young blonde boy remains engrossed in his studies, unaware of the games being played. Back at the estate, a cup of tea is served as Melercia questions the necessity of pushing Cercia so hard. Mercia and Jade Grey argue over Cercia's training, with the mother fearing her 7-year-old child will suffer from overexertion. Jade Grey insists that the Emblem bloodline is resilient, though he admits Cercia's emotions are driving her to extremes. Melercia grows suspicious, wondering exactly who has been feeding Cercia constant updates about Enoch's progress to fuel her fire. Jade Grey breaks into a nervous sweat, hiding his guilt as Melercia vows to punish whoever is inciting Cercia's obsession. A flashback reveals Sir Lawrence pushing Cercia to her limits, claiming the pain of her training is merely an illusion. Nearby, Jade Grey intentionally whispers about Enoch's recent successes, making sure the instructor's large ears catch every word. Sir Lawrence immediately shouts the news to Cercia, causing the girl to erupt into a literal pillar of competitive fury. Enraged by the news of her rival's progress, Cercia screams Enoch's name while her aura blazes with righteous anger. In the present, Jade Grey makes a clumsy and hurried exit to avoid his daughter's wrath, while Melercia demands water for Cercia. The butler enters the room just as the grandfather flees, leaving a confused Mosia to wonder what just happened. Adjusting his monocle, the butler presents an official imperial invitation for the upcoming prestigious hunting competition. Melisha is perplexed by the secondary invitation, noting that they had already received the standard one for their family. Her blood runs cold as she realizes Cercia has been personally invited, and the Greys are likely heading there too. Melercia stands in shock, realizing that the Emperor is intentionally setting the two children against each other in a dangerous arena. The red-haired mother wonders what dark motive the Emperor has for forcing such young children into a public competition. Fear grips her as she thinks of the Mitro forest, a treacherous place where lethal monsters are known to roam. Melceria watches Jade Grey play with a happy Cercia, unable to shake the dread that something terrible is about to happen. The journey begins as the family travels toward the county of Condrias for the start of the imperial event. A white carriage rolls through the castle gates, the rhythmic sound of hooves announcing their arrival at the competition grounds. Cercia's father tries to soothe Melcia's fears, insisting that the imperial knights have cleared the forest of any serious threats. A group of young noble girls wail in jealousy, upset that Cercia is the one who gets to accompany Enoch. Cercia covers her ears in frustration, find the girl's obsession with her troublesome fiancé to be completely exhausting and loud. When a girl cries about wanting to marry Enoch, Circia snaps, calling the entire situation unfair and ridiculous. Circia shouts that he isn't marrying the boy by choice, declaring that the three young girls are stunned into silence by Circea's blunt rejection of the boy they all admire. Circia mocks their taste, claiming Enoch is nothing compared to her own father, before telling the girls to look behind them. The children turn their attention toward the window, catching a glimpse of the men approaching the room. Circea's brown-haired father offers a gentle wave and a radiant smile, personifying the noble grace his daughter so admires. Noble girls wail in shock as heart-shaped arrows of adoration strike them, leaving them completely overwhelmed. Circia demands to be left alone as the girls clamor to marry her handsome, brown-haired father. Tears well in Circea's eyes as a sudden, shocking realization hits her while she watches the palace entrance. Noble carriages roll toward a massive, white-towered palace as the grand imperial hunting competition finally begins. Circia is awestruck by the extravagant decorations and the sheer number of prestigious nobles attending the event. A dark-haired woman in a red gown raises a glass, celebrating the arrival of this long-awaited day. Jade Grey arrives with the young Enoch, their presence drawing attention as they enter the Grand Palace Hall. The grandfather demands Enoch prove his superiority over the emblems, and the silver-haired boy somberly accepts. A bead of sweat falls as Enoch affirms his duty to his grandfather with a serious, dedicated expression. Leading the way, the grandfather tells Enoch to greet the families while the boy searches for Circia. Thump! A heavy brown suitcase is dropped onto an ornate carpet, signaling a sudden change in plans. Circia is devastated to learn she must spend the day alone instead of with her beloved parents. The red-haired girl is heartbroken that even Jacia is leaving her, feeling completely abandoned on her birthday. Tears stream down Circea's face as she laments the lonely, miserable state of her 7th birthday celebration. Circia throws a tantrum on the floor, wailing about the unfairness of being left alone today. Wiping her eyes, the exhausted girl wonders if her fatigue and misery stem from the stressful carriage ride. Circia falls into a sad sleep while a compassionate voice from above pities the poor, crying child. Jacia shakes the groggy girl awake, urging her to hurry as the child reacts with confused sounds. Blindfolded and bewildered, Circia protests her lack of sight as she is led toward an unknown destination. Jacia guides the blindfolded red-haired child through the palace, promising a grand surprise is waiting for her. Circia grumbles about wanting to rest, unaware of the secret plans her family has been carefully hiding. Arriving at the destination, Jacia prepares to remove the blindfold, while Circia continues her tired, pessimistic rambling. Pop! Confetti explodes as the blindfold is removed, leaving a stunned Circia staring at a wonderful sight. Her father stands before her with a radiant smile, holding a large wooden box and wishing her happy birthday. Touched by the surprise, Circia listens as her father explains the difficulty of keeping the secret from her. Joyous tears fill Circea's eyes as she realizes her parents never truly forgot her most important day. Click! Circia begins to lift the lid of the box, her heart racing with anticipation for the gift. Her breath catches in her throat as the first glimpse of the treasure leaves her completely awestruck. A magnificent longsword rests on red velvet, its ornate hilt and polished blade gleaming with dangerous beauty. Trembling with excitement, Circia looks to her father, who laughs and asks if she likes the gift. A memory surfaces of her father previously denying her a real sword, fearing she was still too weak. The young Circia once shouted in protest, declaring it unfair that her rival Enoch already used real weapons.
Back in the present, Circia is deeply moved that her father handmade the sword she wanted so much.
Her father presents a blue and gold uniform, announcing that Circia is now officially an emblem knight. Circia dons the uniform with pride, but a voice warns her that the celebration has just begun. Circia turns toward a group of knights, searching for her mother among the sea of blue and gold. A sharp gasp of surprise escapes the girl as she spots a familiar, commanding presence in the distance. Melcia stands tall in her full knightly regalia, looking every bit the legendary commander her daughter admires. The red-haired child asks if her mother finally accepts her as a knight, seeking validation for her efforts. Melircia draws her blade with a confident grin, challenging her daughter to a duel with no mercy. Circia gleefully accepts, holding her new longsword high as she prepares to face the formidable commander. The mother's fierce gaze settles on Circia as she calls for a demonstration of her daughter's skills. Snap! Circia plants her foot firmly, launching herself forward with explosive speed and a determined shout. Wham! A powerful shockwave erupts as Circia is launched away, her name shouted during the intense clash. Melircia laughs at her own strength, while the frantic father orders his knights to find their daughter. Circia hangs dizzily from a tree, grumbling that her mother should have gone a bit easier on her. Circia watches from afar as her incredibly popular mother is swarmed by admiring nobles at the banquet. Her father suggests that one day Circia might become the commander herself, a prospect she finds impossible. Circia reflects on her journey, realizing the truth of her path only after she began training in earnest. Clenching her fist, Circia admits that compared to Enoch's legendary progress, she feels she lacks natural talent. Circia struggles with deep-seated anxiety, fearing that her rival Enoch might actually defeat her at the competition. She reflects on how her entire training was fueled by spite, making potential failure feel completely meaningless. A phantom memory of clashing steel haunts her thoughts, just as someone calls out for Lord Grey. Circia's focus shifts as she notices a group of excited noble girls gathered across the ballroom. The girls swarm Enoch, blushing and offering him snacks while begging for a dance at the banquet. With a calm and steady expression, Enoch politely declines their offers to remain by his grandfather's side. Circia mocks his sophisticated behavior, finding his mature tone completely ridiculous for a boy his age. Sparks fly as their eyes lock, with Circia finding Enoch's stoic presence more annoying than ever. A silent and intense glaring match ensues between the two children, fueled by their growing competitive fire. The tension breaks when Circia suddenly turns toward the main entrance, sensing the Emperor's grand arrival. The gathered nobles cheer with immense enthusiasm as the watching of their sovereign is officially announced. A majestic blonde emperor enters the hall, accompanied by a young, pale boy who looks quite fragile. Circia is impressed by the emperor's aura, while the crowd whispers about the sickly crown prince's appearance. Circia's father explains that the crown prince has suffered from debilitating health issues since he was very young. The red-haired girl is shocked to learn the boy has survived several brushes with death throughout his childhood. A close-up reveals the crown prince's somber expression, his pale complexion hinting at his ongoing physical struggles. Despite his illness, the young prince offers a gentle and polite smile to the gathered audience of nobles. Circia is struck by a sudden realization as they lock eyes, feeling that the prince is truly kind-hearted. Curious about his condition, Circia asks her father if holy powers could ever fully cure the young royal. Her father speaks gravely, noting that even divine healing cannot protect the prince from his dangerous political enemies. Circia is confused by the talk of danger, but her father dismisses the topic as complicated adult business. Looking toward the throne, Circia feels a wave of pity for the heavy burdens placed upon the prince. She watches from a distance as Enoch prepares to move toward the royal family, assuming his future role. The charismatic emperor waves to his subjects, acknowledging the crowd's cheers with a graceful and royal gesture. Jade Grey steps forward to greet the emperor, marking a formal reunion between the powerful noble and his sovereign. The emperor inquires about Enoch's cleverness, leading the grandfather to present the boy for a formal introduction. Bowing with perfect etiquette, Enoch identifies himself to the emperor with a dedicated and respectful tone. The emperor introduces the crown prince to the group, noting that Enoch is destined to be his knight. Enoch is formally tasked with keeping the crown prince company, much to the pleasure of both high-ranking families. The emperor privately shares his hope that the two boys will become inseparable friends and loyal comrades. Jade Grey's suspicion grows as he notes the emperor's overt and public support for the Grey bloodline. He reflects on the traditional dominance of the emblem family in the Imperial Guard and senses a shift. Looking at his grandson, Jade believes Enoch's unique talent might finally fulfill the family's long-term ambitions. The prince and Enoch turn their heads in unison as a new presence arrives at the banquet hall. Circea's father enters with his daughter at his side, drawing everyone's attention with their striking noble appearance. Circea introduces herself with a confident and radiant smile, her presence blooming like a field of flowers. The crown prince reacts with pure shock, his eyes widening at the mention of the famous emblem family. Gleaming with excitement, the prince rushes towards Circea while clutching a book, desperate to speak with her. He excitedly discusses her family's legendary history, and Circea confirms her familiarity with the foundational heroic tales. A sudden, violent cough causes the prince to spray blood across his book, leaving Circea absolutely horrified. The banquet descends into mild panic as the sickly prince tries to downplay his alarming medical episode. Her father expresses deep concern, urging the young royal to retire and rest while they call a priest. The prince insists he is fine, despite the obvious danger, while Circea remains deeply unsettled by the scene. Circea interprets his teary expression as a silent, desperate plea for help that breaks her heart. To soothe the boy, Circea's father invites him to visit their family estate once his health has stabilized. Circea watches the frail royal with intense pity, saddened that he cannot even play outside like other children. In a moment of genuine support, the red-haired girl offers the prince a determined and friendly thumbs up. A heart-shaped arrow of sudden romantic adoration strikes the prince, leaving him completely awestruck by Circea's kindness. Circea bids him a warm farewell, expressing her sincere hope for his speedy recovery and their next meeting. The prince bows respectfully to Circea's father, his mood completely lifted by his brief encounter with the girl. Benedict prepares to escort the prince, impressing onlookers with his swift and decisive political maneuvering during the banquet. Enoch worries about the upcoming competition, feeling the immense pressure, even though he remains technically ahead of Circea. The morning sun illuminates the entrance to the Mitro Forest as the grand hunting event finally officially begins. An enthusiastic announcer bellows through a megaphone, promising a prestigious future to those who prove their knightly worth. Captains from various knightly orders gather to watch the young participants, their sharp eyes searching for the next prodigy. Marelcia places a steadying hand on Circea's shoulder, questioning her on the most important lesson a warrior must learn. Circea recites the rule of never losing sight of prey, while her mother asks what she truly does best. A confused chibi Circea listens as her mother explains that the answer will reveal itself if she stays focused. Circea's father urges her to depart for the hunt, while Melmercia expresses a final moment of parental concern. He reassures his wife that the youth division only contains harmless herbivores, keeping Circia safe from dangerous monsters. Radiating pure confidence, the red-haired girl beams at her mother and declares that she is strong enough to win. A signal calls for the youth division to gather, and Circia rushes toward her challenge with an excited shout. Circia sprints away with a hilariously cowardly battle cry that leaves both of her parents standing in stunned silence. Gasping in embarrassment, Circia realizes her nerves caused her to shout the exact opposite of what she actually meant. Clenching her fist, Circia vows to defeat Enoch immediately before his talent grows into something completely unreachable. Fueled by a fierce competitive spirit, the red-haired girl charges into the woods, determined to outperform her rival. Circia arrives at the clearing to find Enoch waiting with two other young noble boys who look absolutely shocked. The girl introduces herself as an emblem, her legendary family name causing the other two children to stare. Noticing the awkward silence, Circia asks if the hunt started, finding that Enoch has already vanished into the forest. Circia explodes in outrage, frustrated that Enoch would simply run off without saying a single word to her. One blonde boy watches Circia's tantrum, while the orange-haired child remains silent as she shouts at the trees. Scratching his head, the blonde boy admits he planned to quit, but Enoch's abrupt departure forced him to stay. The low-ranking boys assume Circia views them with total indifference, just like the other elite noble families do. Gasping in surprise, Circia turns back to find the two boys idly sitting near a pile of hunted rabbits. The boys explain they are simply organizing the prey for the high-ranking duo, resigned to their minor support roles. Circia is horrified, realizing their help will disqualify both her and Enoch from winning the competition fairly. The boys dismiss her concern, believing that no one cares about the fate of low-ranking noble children like them. Circia is shocked by their defeatist logic, where winning is viewed as treason and losing is a foregone conclusion. They argue that their entire future was decided the moment they were grouped with such powerful elite houses. Rattle. Circia's hand trembles with rage as she grips her sword hilt, unable to accept their lack of ambition. Circia bellows a fierce rebuke, telling the boys they are completely wrong about everything they just said. The sudden intensity of the girl's shout leaves the two young boys staring at her with wide, fearful eyes. With fire in her gaze, Circia challenges them to try and beat her. Circia challenges them to try and beat her, promising to reveal the consequences. Leaning in with a mischievous grin, she calls their situation a jackpot, enticing them with a rare opportunity. The blonde and orange-haired boys look at each other in total confusion, unable to understand her bizarrely positive outlook. Sunlight filters through the canopy as Circia begins to outline her wild plan for their shared hunting future. Circia invents the term lofo to describe their situation, further baffling the two boys with her unique logic. She acknowledges the massive influence of her family, framing their current struggle as a grand national spectacle for others. Circia argues that the nobles only want a show, and a surprise victory would be the ultimate entertainment. Snap! She raises a finger for a pop quiz, using a metaphor of a burning mansion to explain. She asks if people would rather curse treason or simply enjoy watching a second, even brighter fire erupt. The boys begin to follow her reasoning, their previous despair slowly giving way to a spark of genuine curiosity. Circia points out that night orders will scramble to recruit anyone who manages to defeat elite prodigies like them. Winking playfully, she highlights the glory of beating both a genius and a mediocre rival in one day. Circia prepares to start the next round, only to be startled when Enoch reappears carrying a massive boar. Enoch repeats Circia's insult back to her, his calm expression hiding the fact that he heard her entire speech. Thud! Enoch drops his heavy prey, mentioning his grandfather's frequent teachings on the nature of victory and defeat. He lists the qualities of a noble as he casually tosses another beast onto the pile, asserting his dominance. A radiant aura surrounds the silver-haired boy as he stands triumphantly, looking every bit the legendary knight to be. The blonde boy can only stammer in shock, realizing they haven't even had a chance to speak yet. Enoch notes that not everyone possesses Circea's mental fortitude while she looks at the blonde boy. The blonde boy stammers nervously, admitting he mistook his previous behavior for basic social etiquette. Circea realizes the boy is Olivia Bloodmore's brother, prompting him to ask how she knows his sister. Circea recalls being tormented by the young girl's shrill voice and teary eyes throughout their carriage ride. The boy mentions his brother, Osric, dreams of joining the Emblem Knights, surprising the red-haired girl. Circea offers a special tip on how to impress her mother, the formidable commander of the order. Radiating playful confidence, Chibi Circea gives a cheerful thumbs up to encourage the aspiring young knight. Inspired, the blonde boy and Emmett charge off to prove that even low-ranking nobles can succeed. A sharp clack sounds as Circea adjusts her sword, granting the boys a generous 30-minute head start. Circea teases a sweating Enoch, accusing him of using the break to recover from his obvious exhaustion. Determined to show their true capabilities, the two lower-ranking boys draw their blades with newfound resolve. Letting out a fierce battle cry, the duo sprints into the dense foliage to begin their hunt. Circea giggles at their adorable enthusiasm, while Enoch sits quietly on a rock, watching them depart. A subtle swish sounds as Circea sheathes her blade, only to notice Enoch staring at her intently. A close-up reveals Circea's golden eyes wide with curiosity as she awaits whatever Enoch has to say. Circea shouts with genuine joy, her reaction so intense it causes Enoch to sweat in utter confusion. Misinterpreting her mood, Enoch asks if she plans to go easy on him and let him win. Turning playful yet competitive, Circea vows to crush him, which Enoch finds much more characteristic of her. Enoch offers a soft smile, admitting he prefers their rivalry to be honest and full of effort. Circea observes that Enoch no longer seems nauseous despite their close proximity, and he thoughtfully agrees. Blushing furiously, Enoch suddenly shouts that Circea is way too close, catching her completely off guard. A sudden, high-pitched scream from Olivia Bloodmore interrupts them, forbidding the pair from getting married. Olivia weeps hysterically, her face contorted in a comical expression of childish rage and deep betrayal. Pointing an accusing finger, the young girl labels Circea a liar for breaking a supposed marriage promise. Olivia bellows that Circea promised to marry her father, not Enoch, causing a scene in the woods. Overwhelmed by the ear-splitting shrieks, Chibi Circea wonders if the girl is actually part dolphin. Circea explodes in anger, lecturing Olivia on the extreme danger of sneaking into the restricted hunting grounds. Enoch calmly warns that wild animals make the forest unsafe for a child without a proper weapon. He sternly explains that her intrusion is a serious breach of the Emperor's tournament rules and protocols. Terrified of her parents' reaction, Olivia panics and admits she only snuck in to see Enoch. Circea clutches her throbbing head, while Enoch notes they must escort the girl out before Osric arrives. Circea reflects on how a public disgrace at this event could permanently ruin the Bloodmore family's reputation. Chibi Olivia wails about her brother's hard work while Circea and Enoch stare in exasperated silence. Circea ponders the difficult choice of how to resolve this mess without losing her chance to win. Narrative captions highlight the dilemma: protecting Osric's knightly honor versus safely removing Olivia from the forest. A heavy gulp sounds as Circea feels Enoch's steady gaze on her, sensing his silent anticipation. The scene shifts to the emperor on his throne, receiving an urgent report from a kneeling knight. The emperor chuckles heartily while holding his glass, amusing the crown prince who sits beside him. Expressing his excitement for the tournament's climax, the emperor asks the prince for his winner prediction. The crown prince confidently predicts that the Grey family will emerge victorious in the youth division. He explains that while Circia is undeniably strong, she does not value victory above all else. High above the lush Mitro forest, white birds soar through the sunlight as the prince's analysis continues. The emperor listens intently as the prince describes Circea's noble heart and her instinct to protect others. Back in the woods, Circea struggles internally, wondering how she can both help and defeat Enoch. She recalls her grueling training sessions, realizing that her hard-won progress might be at stake today. Sunlight illuminates Circea's downcast face as she wrestles with the unfairness of the young girl's mistake. With a determined look, Circea shocks Enoch by declaring her intention to forfeit the entire match. Circea reaches out to Olivia, offering to guide her safely back to the forest exit immediately. She warmly explains that her pride prevents her from winning while someone else remains in danger. Enoch reflects on the emblem family motto, realizing Circea would face exile before betraying her values. Enoch is stunned by Circea's decision to forfeit, worrying about his own status in the competition. Circea explains that their shared elite status makes a joint escape too risky to attempt if caught. When questioned about his motivation, Enoch confirms he has a personal, absolute need to win this hunt. A vision of a silver-haired woman in armor suggests the deep personal stakes driving Enoch's hidden ambition. Circea warns Olivia that a failure to win now would bring nothing but public disgrace to her. Circea prepares to lead the frightened girl out of the forest, promising her total safety and protection. Olivia suddenly points into the distance, her voice trembling with terror as she spots a massive new threat. A massive, demonic boar with jagged deer horns and glowing red eyes charges through the dense forest. Circea's eyes widen in horror as she identifies the creature as a dangerous, demonic, giant deer-horned boar. Snorting fiercely, the beast looms over them, defying the claim that the forest was cleared of monsters. Circea shields Olivia, recalling her mother's grim warnings about the predatory nature of such magical world beasts. The boar exhales a heavy mist, driven by a legendary, uncontrollable urge to hunt and kill humans. Enoch draws his sword alongside Circea, acknowledging the beast's rank while they both stand their ground. Looking at the beast's overwhelming size, Circea realizes defeating it is a near impossible task for young children. Gripping her sword, Circea calls upon her father's memory to find the courage to face the monster. Circea raises her blade high, her face set in a mask of intense, desperate determination to strike. A sharp clink sounds as Circea adjusts her stance, focusing every ounce of her training into one strike. The boar bellows and charges with terrifying speed, forcing Circea to focus entirely on her giant prey. Sweat beads on Circea's face as she searches for the opening her body instinctively knows how to exploit. Trusting in her hundreds of hours of grueling practice, Circea launches herself into a fierce, blinding attack. Circea sprints directly beneath the massive creature, her form a blur of red hair and sharp steel. A deafening roar echoes through the trees as the boar realizes it has been outmaneuvered by the girl. Circea delivers a precise, powerful blow to the beast's underbelly, her blade cutting through the thick hide. Blood sprays into the air as the boar screeches in agony, its dominance suddenly shattered by her strike. Circia shouts a command for Enoch to finish the job while he watches her in stunned silence. Snapping out of his shock, Enoch charges forward with a fierce expression to deliver the final blow. Thud. Enoch's foot slams into the ground, propelling him upward as stones and dirt scatter everywhere. Ha! With a mighty cry, Enoch plunges his sword deep into the monster's neck from high above.
A massive explosion of dark energy erupts as the demonic beast finally falls to their combined might.
Standing in the sudden downpour, a dazed Enoch stares at his bloodied blade, questioning his own success. The enormous carcass of the deer-horned boar lies still in the mud as the rain falls heavily. Circia collapses to her knees in exhaustion, while a terrified Olivia watches from a safe distance behind. Rain and sweat mix on Enoch's face as he calls out to Circia, his voice full of disbelief. Enoch turns his head away, struggling to process the overwhelming intensity of the battle they just survived. He reflects on his momentary paralysis, feeling a deep sense of shame for hesitating in the crisis. The scene flashes back to Circia's desperate shout, commanding him to cut off the beast's breath. Enoch delivers the lethal strike once more, his blade piercing through the monster's neck with brutal precision. He realizes Circia was the one who truly won the fight by waking him from his fear. Blood drips slowly from the hilt of Enoch's sword as he silently admits his perfect defeat. Enoch remains frozen in the rain, humbled by the gap between Circia's resolve and his own. Peeking out from behind Circia, Olivia asks if the nightmare is finally over as the rain continues. Olivia comically wails in relief, while Circia dryly reassures the girl that they are both still alive. With tears in her eyes, Olivia offers a sincere thanks to Circia for her incredible bravery. Circia gazes back at the young girl, her golden eyes reflecting the weight of their shared survival. A warm smile touches Circia's lips as she expresses her genuine happiness that Olivia is unharmed. Osric and Emmett suddenly appear, their faces contorted in shock at the sight of the bloody scene. Osric stammers in horror, unable to comprehend the sight of the legendary beast's corpse and Enoch's state. Circia greets the boys, warning that Enoch's incredible feat will soon throw the entire tournament into chaos. Circia urges Osric to take Olivia and flee immediately before the crowd discovers their illegal intrusion. A bloodied Enoch confronts a man in a vision, accusing him of lying about victory and defeat. Circia recoils in sudden, violent realization, her eyes wide with shock as she points toward the boy. Trembling, Circia wonders why the face of a man from her previous life is overlapping with Enoch's. A flashback reveals a man in a modern suit standing before a city skyline, greeting a detective. The dark-haired man offers a smug look, questioning if the detective came specifically to see him today. Back in the rain, Enoch calls out in frantic concern as Circia clutches her head in pain. Startled, Enoch halts his advance as Circia's desperate scream forbids him from coming any closer to her. Breathless and sweating, Circia struggles to understand why Enoch's appearance triggered such a hauntingly familiar memory. Enoch reaches up to his bloodied forehead, gently asking if the monster's blood caused her sudden distress. Stepping back, Enoch asks if the distance helps, as Circia realizes the nausea fades with his hair hidden. Though he remains blunt, Circia privately admits that Enoch isn't a bad person despite his difficult personality. Enoch kneels silently in the muddy grass, methodically cleaning the blood from his blade as rain pours. Enoch suddenly draws his sword, challenging Circia to a proper duel to settle their score once and for all. Circia reacts with confused annoyance, pointing out that they only just survived the hunt against the beast. With icy blue eyes and a determined gaze, Enoch insists they fight to prove who is truly superior. Circia shouts back, declaring that Enoch was the one who ultimately landed the killing blow on the monster. Explaining her resolve, Circia admits she only sought his help because she couldn't risk dying before succeeding. Enoch stands frozen in disbelief as Circia scolds him for being an idiot and dropping his guard. Calming down, Circia sincerely acknowledges that she would have died if he hadn't cut the beast's breath. Clasping her hand, Circia warns him not to get cocky just because he claimed victory this one time. As she walks away into the rain, Circia reaffirms her unwavering desire to master the art of the sword. Though she dislikes his personality, Circia feels a quiet gratitude for the chance to improve her skills. Circia recalls Olivia's tearful eyes as the young girl thanked her for saving her life in the forest. Memories of her past life resurface, showing grieving parents weeping and thanking her for bringing their daughter peace. Reflecting on her path, the former detective realizes her deepest drive was to become a salvation for others. Circia looks at her palms with a faint smile, finding profound meaning in having protected someone once again. She clenches her fist, the thrilling memory of striking the monster's weak point burning vividly in her mind. Suddenly, Circia bursts into bright, genuine laughter, her face lighting up with a rare moment of pure happiness. Enoch watches her intently, noting her joy as he remains silent while observing her rare display of emotion. Dressed in his finery, Enoch walks down a celebratory red carpet while petals and confetti fall around him. The crowd murmurs in awe, praising the young genius of the Grey family for surpassing the legendary emblems. Duke Grey stands among the nobles, receiving congratulations, while a narration highlights the dawn of a new era. The Duke gazes toward the horizon, envisioning Enoch as the first Grey to serve the Crown Prince's guard. A close-up of Duke Grey reveals a sharp, calculating expression hidden beneath his dignified, white-bearded exterior. Seated on his throne, the golden-haired emperor smugly observes that the Duke has correctly read his political intentions. Sipping wine, the emperor manipulates a chess piece, noting that Enoch's victory served his grander scheme perfectly. The emperor looms over the chessboard, suggesting that the Duke should now follow the path he has laid. With a dark, knowing smile, the emperor addresses the Duke as master, questioning if he will remain loyal. Sunlight filters through the lush greenery of the forest as a quiet peace finally returns to the woods. In the tournament camp, Olivia's mother approaches with a heavy heart, needing to confess a serious matter. Olivia's mother bows deeply in apology to Lady Emblem, begging for forgiveness for her daughter's reckless behavior. She explains with great shame that Olivia followed Circia into the restricted hunting grounds in secret. Lady Emblem stands stunned, her hand to her chest as she hears the truth of what transpired. Desperate to help, Olivia shouts that Circia is safe despite suffering a minor injury to her hand. Lady Emblem looks down sadly, blaming herself for causing trouble and apologizing for her own perceived faults. Surrounded by flowers, Lady Emblem offers a radiant, reassuring smile that puts those around her at ease. Both Olivia and her mother stare in wide-eyed amazement at Lady Emblem's unexpected kindness and grace. Lady Emblem crouches to eye level, gently telling Olivia that the Emblem family simply did what was right. Lady Emblem's husband appears to escort her, and she politely takes her leave with a graceful bow. Touched by the encounter, Olivia and her mother nod in respect as they watch the noble family depart. As they walk away, the husband points into the distance, asking Lady Emblem to look toward the horizon. Circia spots her parents in the distance, her voice filled with longing as she calls out to them. Relieved to see their daughter, Circia's parents shout her name while tears of worry finally begin to fade.
Full of joyful energy, Circia sprints across the grass, shouting a vibrant greeting as she returns home safely. Circia leaps into the warm embrace of her mother and father, the trio reuniting in a heartfelt hug. Her father asks if she had fun, and Circia enthusiastically confirms her exciting adventures in the woods. With a bright smile, Circia tells her mother she has a special story she is eager to share. Her parents lean in, their faces showing a mixture of curiosity and attentiveness to their daughter's secret. Circia bursts into a wide, toothy grin, her face radiating pure, unadulterated happiness at being back home. Surrounded by falling petals, the Emblem family shares a deep, lingering hug, celebrating their daughter's safe return. Clack! In a flashback, a young Enoch's master delivers a harsh strike and warns him of fatal hesitation. The master explains that true swordsmanship must be felt by the body rather than reasoned by the mind. Letting out a defiant cry, the young, silver-haired boy pours all his frustration and effort into training. Crack! Enoch delivers a strike so powerful, it shatters his master's wooden sword into a flurry of splinters. The master bows respectfully, ending the session as Enoch breathes heavily and expresses his sincere gratitude. Nobles praise Enoch for his victory, but the boy walks past them with a troubled and hollow expression. Enoch reflects on his official victory, knowing the deeper truth of how Circia truly saved him. Watching the celebratory crowd from afar, Enoch admits to himself that he doesn't deserve their hollow praises. Seeking solitude, the silver-haired boy sits alone under a lush tree, hidden from the noise of the camp. Enoch stares at a letter addressed to him from his mother, his eyes reflecting a deep, quiet sadness. He recalls the promise that success in the competition would finally allow him to return home. Clasping the letter to his chest, Enoch finds a moment of peace in his mother's loving written words. A faint, hopeful smile touches his lips as he vows to see his mother again very soon. The scene shifts to the magnificent gray estate, its white towers standing tall against a bright blue sky. Crack! Back in the present, Enoch effortlessly parries a training blow, his skills far surpassing his master's expectations. The golden-haired emperor sips wine, smugly asking Duke Gray if he agrees that Enoch is a brilliant genius. Duke Gray sternly confronts the emperor, accusing him of intentionally releasing the monster to test the children. With a mocking shrug, the emperor feigns innocence while enjoying his wine, dismissing the duke's grave concerns. The duke's voice rises in anger as he condemns the emperor's prank for risking innocent lives. Emperor Marcian justifies his actions, claiming a monster was necessary to reveal the true potential of future commanders. Shocked, Duke Gray realizes the Emperor is setting the stage to make Enoch his personal sword. The Emperor stands over his desk, expressing his desire for a Gray family member to guard the prince. Duke Gray reflects on the political weight of such an offer and the long-standing feud with the Emblems. Marcian insists that the Empire needs sharp-minded young knights like Enoch to become heroes for the people. A close-up of the Emperor's calculating gaze reveals his true intention to use Enoch as a political symbol. Though he acknowledges Enoch's skill, the Duke remains deeply suspicious of the Emperor's ultimate goals. Duke Gray stares at the scrolls on his desk, silently questioning what the Emperor is truly hunting for. The Duke walks past a portrait of a silver-haired woman, his expression heavy with long-buried secrets. Thump! His boots hit the ground heavily as the Duke suddenly staggers, his composure finally breaking. Gasping for air, Duke Gray collapses into a nearby chair, the weight of the Emperor's manipulation overwhelming him. He desperately asks Marcian if something happened to Dana, the missing knight commander sent away by Imperial order. A tattered, blood-stained blue banner lies forgotten on a dark cave floor, hinting at a tragic fate. Duke Gray realizes the offer for Enoch is a bribe to buy his silence regarding Dana's mysterious disappearance. The golden-haired emperor confirms the Duke's suspicion with a cold, unwavering look of political dominance. Marcian reflects on his chess-like maneuvers, confident that the Duke has no choice but to accept. Duke Gray stares at the emperor, realizing the cold-blooded nature of the trap he has fallen into. Startled, the emperor halts as Duke Gray sternly reminds him that a proper apology must always come first. The Duke scolds the young ruler, telling him to conduct politics with the honor of a swordsman. He warns that anyone who turns away from obstacles will find their own head severed in an instant. Ending his lecture, Duke Gray turns away, leaving the emperor to reflect on his stinging words. As he walks alone, the emperor privately admits his attempt to trick his master was a complete failure. Emperor Marcian reveals the Empress's lethal tactics, involving poison and dark rituals to destabilize the realm. Marcian seeks a knight loyal enough to sacrifice everything for the weak prince, eyeing the young Circia. News of the commander's disappearance threatens to plunge the empire into chaos as the Empress prepares her move. Enoch's political position grows precarious, facing either execution or exile, depending on the outcome of the Empress's coup. With a piercing gaze, the emperor implores his master to intervene and halt the Empress's dangerous ascent. Duke Gray realizes the complexity of the situation, knowing Enoch's father is the Empress's own younger brother. Memories of a younger Enoch surface, recalling the heartbreaking moment he was torn from his mother's side. A somber reflection wonders why the young boy must be sacrificed to such a cruel and manipulative fate. Sunlight bathes the majestic imperial palace as a voice calls out to check if Circia is finally ready. Circia's father prepares for the day's events, while his valet assists him with his formal military attire. Confused by an unexpected request, the brown-haired man questions the logic behind the sudden change in plans. Advised to handle the matter personally, the Duke steps forward to address the situation involving his spirited daughter. Startled by the news, Circia's father stops in his tracks, fearing something terrible has happened to her daughter. Entering the bedroom, the father finds Circia resting while her friend Olivia offers a comforting presence. Olivia and the maids pamper Circia, making sure she is fed and comfortable despite her recent injury. The girls look up in surprise as the Duke enters, disrupting their quiet afternoon of sweets and gossip. Requesting a private moment, the father asks the girls for space so he can speak with Circia alone. Sitting on the bed, the father notes how much Circia's fiery spirit resembles her mother's youthful personality. He smiles warmly, recalling how Melcia was just as stubborn and eager to prove herself in her youth. Circia beams with pride, clutching a jar of treats while relishing the rare praise from her beloved father. The atmosphere shifts as he questions her reluctance to attend the hunting competition's prestigious award ceremony. Flustered, Circia listens as he explains that Enoch credited his victory entirely to her own skillful thrust. Circia nervously fidgets with her treats, the mention of her hidden contribution making her feel deeply uneasy. She looks away guiltily, struggling to reconcile her desire for anonymity with the recognition she clearly earned. Raising her bandaged arm, Circia declares that her recovery is the only thing she truly cares about. She complains that the splint is a boring hindrance, preventing her from continuing the sword practice she loves. With pleading eyes, the red-haired girl begs her father to lift the ban and let her train again. Her father remains firm, stating that training is strictly forbidden until she has fully healed from her injuries. Disappointed, Circia's thoughts drift to Enoch, wondering if the boy is still pushing himself to the absolute limit.
She softly apologizes for her stubbornness, leaning into her father's comforting touch as her frustration slowly fades. At the grand celebration, Circea's attention is captured by something unexpected moving through the crowded ballroom. A dazzling aura fills the hall, and Circea stands mesmerized by the opulent displays of imperial wealth. A young noble boy named Osric approaches Circea, offering his sincere thanks for her bravery during the hunt. Circea casually mentions that her arm hasn't healed yet, showing off her bandage with a nonchalant shrug. Osric's jaw drops as Circea explains she's bypassed the ban by focusing entirely on intense lower body training. She gives a cheerful thumb. Horrified by her obsession, Osric wonders if there is any limit to the girl's dedication to the sword. He watches her silently, noting that her eyes only truly sparkle when she speaks of her training. Circea leans in with a mischievous grin, asking the shocked boy if he has ever tried lower body training. Suddenly, a heavy hand drops onto Osric's shoulder, sending a chill of pure terror down the boy's spine. Enoch appears behind the trembling boy, his cold gaze fixed on Circea as he offers a chilling greeting. Looking exhausted and irritable, Enoch yawns while Circea observes that he seems dangerously on edge today. Enoch bluntly reminds Circea of their engagement, his voice devoid of any warmth or affection for his fiancée. He stares at her with a heavy, unreadable expression, the weight of his family's expectations visible in his eyes. Clenching his eyes shut, Enoch admits he finds the crowded hall suffocating and desperately wants to return home. Circea reminds him that he is the guest of honor, but Enoch remains dismissive of the hollow accolades. Nearby nobles mock Enoch's mood, whispering that he is only upset because he didn't deliver the final kill. A sharp retort cuts through the gossip as a senior noble scolds the group for their lack of intelligence. Tempers flare as the nobles trade insults, with accusations of mediocrity sparking a heated and public confrontation. As the men prepare to settle their dispute with violence, Enoch and Circea watch the childish display in silence. A tense hand grips a sword hilt as the rivalry between powerful families reaches a boiling point. Enoch urgently shouts for Circea to find an adult as the surrounding chaos intensifies. Circea freezes in shock, her eyes wide as an unknown hand reaches toward her amidst the turmoil. A dark vision of a bloody Enoch and a mysterious black-haired man haunts Circea's memories. Circea stands paralyzed with fear as a desperate shout for her name echoes through the hall. The haunting image of the black-haired man calling for an inspector flashes through Circea's mind. Snapping back to reality, Circea is startled by the repeated cries of her name. Circea nervously clutches her red bow, her bandaged hand a reminder of her recent ordeal. Enoch looks on with a bead of sweat, clearly uncomfortable with the brewing confrontation between the knights. Rival groups of knights trade insults and threats, each side determined to prove their family's superiority. The Grey Knights cheer loudly, ready to settle the dispute with their swords in a public display of power. A man in an elegant white suit suddenly stumbles into the middle of the argument with a dramatic cry. With a heavy thud, the newcomer collapses onto the floor, completely disrupting the knights' heated standoff. The man in white feigns confusion, asking who pushed him, while the bickering knights point fingers in embarrassment. Surrounded by a shimmering floral aura, the handsome man in white strikes a pose to charm the angry onlookers. He offers a cheerful greeting to the emblems and Grey Knights, using his charisma to diffuse the tension. Enoch and Circea stare in total disbelief at the man's sudden and flamboyant intervention. Enoch's jaw drops as he recognizes the dramatic man in the white suit as his own father. The man casually mentions a delicious batch of bread, further confusing the knights who were ready to fight. He maintains a dazzling, innocent smile, while the noble knights struggle to process his nonsensical babbling. The tension evaporates as the knights find themselves thanking the man for his unexpected and bizarre interruption. With a charming wave, Circea's father announces their departure, pulling the children away from the hostile crowd. Circea follows her father, privately wondering if his overwhelming beauty is actually a more effective weapon than a sword. Enoch realizes his father only used the excuse of bread to provide them with a quick and clever escape. Circea claps happily at the rescue, while Enoch remains skeptical of his father's eccentric and theatrical methods. Her father peeks back through the door, offering a warm and final wish for the children to rest well. Enoch and Circea politely thank her father as he finally departs, leaving the two children alone in the hall. Circea breathes a heavy sigh of relief, asking Enoch if such sudden brawls are common among his order. Seeing Enoch lounging casually on a sofa, Circea notes how quickly he has returned to his usual detached self. Enoch turns an uncharacteristically sharp and intense gaze towards Circea, making the red-haired girl feel deeply unsettled. He demands an explanation for her strange behavior earlier, refusing to let her hide behind her usual silence. Circea wonders if she inadvertently offended him by avoiding his presence when the adults arrived. Enoch bluntly dismisses her concern, but his cold expression indicates that something else is weighing heavily on his mind. Circea presses him for the real reason behind his irritation as he begins to walk away from her. Hesitating, Circea admits she has a secret request that she can only share if he agrees to help. She tries to downplay the request as unimportant, though her nervous expression suggests a much deeper significance. Circea insists that Enoch must promise to grant her favor before she reveals the details of her plan. Enoch argues that her demand sounds more like an order than a request, causing Circea to nearly withdraw the idea. Enoch stops and reflects, his brow furrowed as he considers whether to trust the girl's mysterious intentions. With a resigned sigh, Enoch finally agrees to grant her request, his curiosity getting the better of him. Circea instructs him to repeat a specific phrase after her, catching the silver-haired boy completely off guard. She grabs Enoch's shoulders with a firm grip, staring into his eyes with a desperate and haunting intensity. Enoch is stunned by the sudden shift in the atmosphere, feeling the heavy weight of Circea's serious gaze. Circea demands that he call her Inspector, her voice trembling with the need to confirm a lingering suspicion. Enoch stares at her, utterly baffled by the nonsensical title and wondering what could have prompted such a request. Circea shouts at him to hurry up and obey, her frustration boiling over as she seeks an answer. She reflects on the overwhelming sense of déjà vu she feels every time she looks at Enoch's face. Circea hopes that hearing him use that specific title will finally reveal the hidden connection to her past. Enoch softly whispers the requested title, his voice barely audible as he complies with her strange command. He asks if she is satisfied, but Circea is left in a daze, her confusion only growing deeper. Circea reflects on Enoch's attitude, convinced he couldn't possibly be connected to the man from her dark vision. She tells the silver-haired boy to forget her strange request, waving it off as if it were nothing. Enoch protests loudly, stumbling over his words as he reminds her of their connection and his status as her fiancé. Circea watches him with wide, curious eyes, confused by his sudden hesitation and the way his voice trailed off. Enoch demands that Circea make a promise in return for his help, his expression serious as they face each other. Holding out his hand, the boy insists on a pinky promise to ensure she fulfills her part of their deal. He stands firm with his finger extended,
his eyes full of determination as he waits for her to agree. Circia stares at his hand with a bead of sweat, feeling incredibly awkward about the childish and persistent gesture. A sudden, bustling commotion erupts from the hallway outside, capturing Circea's attention and breaking the tension between the two. Enoch raises his voice, demanding the promise once more, as the noise from the crowd outside begins to intensify. Circia looks at him with a flat, unimpressed expression, thinking that he is making far too much of a fuss. She gives a quick, dismissive thumbs up and an awkward shrug, trying to end the conversation as people chatter nearby. Watching him walk away, Circia is relieved to see his face finally relax, though she remains cautious of his mood. A crowd of nobles gathers by the large doors, whispering as they anticipate the arrival of someone of great importance. Circia wonders who could be arriving as the group discusses the rarity of meeting such a high-ranking individual. A formal announcement rings out for Her Majesty the Empress, leaving both Circia and Enoch standing in total shock. The Empress appears in a shimmering aura, holding the hand of the young second prince, Adore Leopold Rutinus. Circia admires the woman's grace, whispering to Enoch to confirm if the Empress is truly his father's older sister. Circia notes the strong family resemblance among the royalty, thinking to herself that their powerful genes are clearly at work. Edward, Enoch's father, looks incredibly stressed as he tells Circia they must leave immediately due to an urgent matter. Both children offer a polite and quick response, bowing as they prepare to follow the black-haired man out. Circia notices her uncle is breaking out in a nervous sweat, worrying that he looks far from being okay. She watches him closely, thinking that his pale face and heavy sweating suggest he is hiding a great deal of distress. Edward begins to tremble violently, appearing scared as he tries to maintain a calm facade while urging Circia to enjoy herself. Circia waves goodbye, but her smile fades as she senses a strange, unsettling aura emanating from the beautiful Empress. The Empress questions her brother's coldness, while Circia notes how the atmosphere in the room has suddenly turned icy. Acting deeply hurt, the dark-haired Empress clutches her chest and wonders why her brother doesn't understand her feelings. Edward bows stiffly to his sister, who ignores his coldness to comment on seeing her pretty nephew for the first time. Edward sharply rebuffs her, declaring that he has cut ties with the family and is no longer her younger brother. Enoch looks up at his father in shock as Edward demands that the Empress withdraw her interest from his son. Circia stands in the background, thinking the air has grown cold as she wonders what caused the rift between them. A terrifying vision of Edward's glowing blue eyes flashes as he warns the woman to stop calling herself his sister. Raising his voice, the black-haired man tells the Empress that it makes him deeply uncomfortable when she speaks of family. The Empress sighs as onlookers whisper gossip, while Circia observes that she has never seen her uncle this furious before. Circia feels the weight of the public confrontation, realizing that even if Edward is being rude, something is very wrong. Edward clutches his head in agony, gasping for breath as he begs the Empress to finally let him leave the hall. Circia finds the situation suspicious, noting that the Empress continues to push her brother despite his obvious and physical suffering. The Empress reaches out with feigned concern, but Circia feels that the woman's true nature is nothing like her outward beauty. Circia's mind races as she tries to think of a way to help her uncle escape the strict imperial protocols. Pop! A sudden idea flashes through Circia's mind, her eyes wide with a look of mischievous and determined inspiration. She decides that the only way to save Edward is to create a massive and convincing distraction for the crowd. Circia rushes to Edward with a dramatic shout, claiming he looks pale and is on the verge of collapsing from fever. She gives Enoch a quick wink and whispers for him to help her get their uncle out of the room.
Enoch quickly understands the plan, shouting about his father's health and urging him to return to the estate immediately. The surrounding nobles and the Empress watch with growing concern, convinced that Edward's condition is much worse than it appeared. Circea argues that the Empress surely wouldn't want her brother to collapse in public, forcing the woman to finally step back. The Empress looks on with a bead of sweat, realizing that a public collapse would cause a scandal for the throne. Edward stands in shock at the children's theatrical rescue, finally finding an opening to make his escape from his sister. The Empress laughs and claims she was only acting out of sisterly worry, but Circea remains deeply suspicious of her. Edward looks back with a sharp and haunted expression, the weight of the encounter clearly leaving him deeply unsettled. Edward takes his leave with a stiff bow, leading the silver-haired Enoch away from the icy imperial encounter. Circea watches the Empress and Prince Ador walk away, feeling an awkward tension as her own family departs. Standing alone before the royal woman, Circea deeply regrets not following her uncle and Enoch out of the room. The Empress scoffs, and Circea shudders as she senses a terrifying, hidden fury boiling beneath the woman's beautiful exterior. Gulping nervously, Circea wonders if the Empress should have understood her brother's obvious pain, despite her own royal status. The Empress acknowledges Circea's identity as the Lady of House Emblem, while the red-haired girl offers a polite curtsy. A deceptively sweet smile graces the Empress's face as she looks down at the small, nervous girl before her. Circea continues her lecture, boldly telling the royal that true care means noticing when someone is hurting or silent. Behind her mask of grace, the Empress seethes with rage at being lectured by such a small, insolent child. Unfazed, Circea tells the powerful woman to stop bothering her uncle, regardless of her status as the reigning empress. Circea plays the innocent child card, asking if such a grand lady would truly get mad at a 7-year-old. Laughing off the tension, the Empress calls Circea adorable, noting she is exactly what she expected of an emblem. The Empress gathers Prince Ador to depart, mentioning there will be more chances to see Edward and Enoch later. Circea wishes the royals a safe journey while watching the dark-haired boy and his mother walk away into the hall. Deep in thought, Circea wonders what the Empress meant by her cryptic comment about the emblem family's reputation. Later, a brown-haired man approaches Circea at a table, asking where she has been hiding herself during the party. Circea explains her encounter, privately wondering if the royal woman harbors a deep and ancient hatred for her house. The man reveals a scandalous secret. The man the Empress once loved proposed to Circea's mother, Melcia, instead. Pewee! Circea spits her drink in total shock as the man reveals the jilted suitor was the emperor himself. Circea realizes the Empress has a massive reason to despise her family, even if the emperor eventually married her. Wiping her mouth, Circea panics, realizing she has unintentionally poked a hornet's nest and made a powerful enemy. Night falls over the grand castle as voices echo through the darkness, calling out desperately for Circea to appear. Circea is startled in her room when Melcia bursts through the door with a look of pure, frantic desperation. Her mother demands to know what Circea said to the Empress, her face pale with intense and visible worry. Melcia scolds her daughter, insisting that speaking to the Empress at all was a dangerous and grave mistake. The red-haired woman cries out in frustration, while Circea can only watch her mother in confusion and growing fear. Circea's father enters the room, calling out to his wife to try and soothe her obvious and heavy distress. He comforts Melcia, reminding her that they never shared the Empress's dark history with their young, innocent daughter. Circia watches as her mother collapses into her father's arms, wondering if something terrible happened to Aunt Dana. Melcia leaves the room to be alone, leaving Circia and her father in a heavy, somber silence. Thud. The door closes, leaving Circia sitting quietly on the bed while her father watches her mother walk away. Circia asks about Aunt Dana, but her father admits he is still waiting for more information himself.
Circia worries she is at fault, but her father suggests her mother is simply on edge due to current events.
Her father remains silent for a moment, his gaze distant as he processes the weight of their family's situation. Reaching out, the brown-haired man pulls Circia into a warm, protective hug to comfort his worried daughter. Circia clings to her father, promising to stay safe and quiet as the tension in the house continues to grow. Clang! A sharp sound startles the man, causing him to look up with a focused and wary expression. He rushes toward the balcony, his footsteps light and quick as he goes to investigate the commotion outside. Clash! A vision of a past battle flashes, showing a red-haired soldier clashing swords in a fierce, glowing duel. A younger Melcia wields a sword, accusing someone of choosing the family name over saving a human life. Kang, Circia's grandfather, the red-haired general, roars at Melcia for her perceived insult against his honor.
Circia watches from the bed as her father stares out the window, sensing the chaos unfolding nearby.
He turns back to Circia, sternly ordering her to remain in her room and hide from whatever is happening. He gently cups her cheek, promising to investigate the fighting and return safely to her as soon as possible. Her father offers a reassuring but strained smile before turning away to face the night's unknown dangers. Circia watches him dash down the stairs, feeling a chilling premonition that something is terribly and fundamentally wrong.
Standing alone in the dimly lit hall, the young girl trembles as the weight of the situation sinks in.
She clenches her fist, worrying about someone who was looking forward to a happy and long-awaited reunion. Circia remembers Enoch's hopeful face and his desire to finally live with his mother if he succeeded. Flump. Circia sits on her bed, her heart aching as she realizes Enoch is likely still waiting for her. Circia worries that Aunt Dana was severely injured in Crichton based on her mother's frantic behavior. Sitting in her dark room, the young girl fears Dana's injuries might prevent her from ever returning home. With a sudden start, the red-haired girl leaps from her bed, driven by an urgent and growing anxiety.
Circia panics, realizing that the reckless Enoch might attempt to head to the dangerous Crichton region on his own.
The scene shifts to the silver-haired boy standing alone in the shadows, his presence feeling heavy and somber. Enoch's pale eyes reflect a deep, unspoken resolve as he stares into the distance with a troubled expression. A heavy thud echoes through the silent, grand hallway, emphasizing the oppressive atmosphere hanging over the estate. A newspaper headline reveals Aunt Dana's disappearance, explaining why the household's mood has completely shattered into despair. A hand snaps the newspaper shut as Circia gasps, the grim reality of the news finally sinking in. The brown-haired maid, Jessia, tries to withhold the paper, but Circia insists on knowing the state of the country. Slumping over a table, the red-haired girl admits she feels lonely and simply wanted to dine with her father. Jessia informs the disappointed child that her mother departed for the imperial palace early in the morning. Circia laments her isolation, feeling abandoned by her mother, father, and her grandfather all at once. Seeing Circia's tearful eyes, Jessia gently reassures the young girl that her family will surely return to her. Overcome with gratitude, Circia beams at the maid, declaring that Jessia is truly the best companion she has. Jessia offers a warm, comforting touch, placing her hands on Circea's shoulders to soothe her visible distress. When Circea asks to visit the Gray family, Josiah's expression turns firm as she delivers a blunt refusal. Jessia explains that the Gray house is currently too hostile, as they blame the family head for Dana's disappearance. Circea taps her cheek thoughtfully, processing the complicated web of blame and resentment surrounding her aunt's sudden vanishing. Denied her visit, the energetic girl decides to channel her nervous energy into vigorous sword training instead. A small, hand-drawn portrait of Enoch is pinned to a straw dummy, marking it as her training partner. Circea swings her sword with focus, her heart aching as she continues to worry about Enoch's well-being. She pauses, struck by the realization that Enoch has been her most loyal friend through every family crisis. Tears well in Circea's eyes as she recognizes that Enoch stayed by her side when no one else was. With a joyful cry, she tackles the training dummy, embracing it as a surrogate for her missing friend. The wooden structure snaps under her enthusiasm, leaving Circea staring at the broken base in confused silence. Shaken by the broken dummy, Circea panics, wondering why everything around her seems to be falling apart now. Collapsing to the ground, the young girl wails for her family, terrified by thoughts of monsters and Enoch's safety. A heavy step sounds nearby as a tall figure approaches the weeping girl sitting on the dusty training ground. Circea wipes her eyes and looks up in surprise, her tears pausing at the sight of the newcomer. The red-haired grandfather stands before her in his ornate blue uniform, his presence commanding yet surprisingly warm. He gathers Circea into a powerful, protective embrace, his laughter booming as he comforts his crying granddaughter. The veteran soldier reveals he has abdicated his title of Duke to take full responsibility for Dana's disappearance. Circea is stunned by the casual revelation, unable to believe her grandfather would give up such a high status. With a proud smile, the man declares that his sword and his actions are all he needs to define himself. He places a large, calloused hand on Circea's head, imparting a sense of strength and heritage to the girl. Circea repeats his inspiring words in her mind, her eyes wide with a newfound respect for her grandfather's philosophy. He encourages her to find her own path, promising that her training will give her a firmer footing in life. A brilliant, joyful smile lights up the girl's face as she absorbs her grandfather's wisdom and support. The red-haired man looks down at her with a soft, affectionate expression, clearly moved by her happy reaction. He remembers a gift he brought from the palace, causing Circea's eyes to sparkle with pure, childish excitement. Circea admires her new lace headpiece, her spirits lifted by the simple yet beautiful present from her grandfather. Her worry returns as she asks why he cannot go to Crichton, prompting him to warn her of the dangers. Narrowing her eyes, Circea asks if he knows the hidden truth behind what actually happened to Aunt Dana. He avoids specifics but assures her Dana is fine, while Circea remains suspicious of the secrets he is keeping. He promises to visit every year for her birthday, his words echoing over the quiet estate as he prepares to depart. Circea clings to the memory of his comfort, her tears flowing freely as she says her goodbyes to him. A loud growl breaks the emotional moment, causing the grandfather to look down in bewilderment at the sound. Laughing sheepishly, Circea admits she skipped her meals, causing her grandfather to react with a look of pure shock. The red-haired man roars in indignation, demanding to know who allowed his precious granddaughter to go hungry. The red-haired grandfather bellows a lecture at Circea's parents, forgetting his Cold War over the absolute importance of meals. Malicia apologizes profusely as her father's fiery temper flares, both momentarily united by their shared concern for Circea's hunger.
Circia smiles brightly over a delicious spread, cheekily deciding that skipping a meal was worth seeing her family finally reconcile. Dining alone, the red-haired girl reflects on the loneliness of her past life compared to her current overprotective family. Circia stirs her food thoughtfully, her heart aching with worry as she wonders when she will see Enoch again. The brown-haired maid, Jessia, bids Lady Circia a good rest as she exits the room, leaving the young girl alone. A sudden call from the doorway startles Circia, who turns her head with a look of quiet and curious surprise. Jessia returns with urgent news, revealing that the silver-haired Lord Enoch has run away from home once again. Circia feigns annoyance, huffing that she shouldn't care about the boy, while the maid laughs at her obvious concern. Worried about Enoch's safety among refugees, Circia's thoughts drift to the boy sitting alone in the dark, silent woods. A sudden realization strikes Circia, her golden eyes widening as she pieces together where the boy might be hiding. Clack! Dashes onto the balcony, her hands gripping the stone railing as she peers into the moonlit night. Looking down with a determined and serious frown, the red-haired girl prepares to take action and find her missing friend. Deep in the forest, the silver-haired Enoch sits reading a letter, unaware that Circia has followed him into the darkness. Circia approaches softly, calling out to Enoch as he looks up in surprise at her sudden and unexpected arrival. Circia sits beside him, asking about the paper he is holding, while he stoically claims he hasn't been crying at all.
Enoch lies back on the grass, admitting the letter is from his mother, as Circia watches him with deep concern.
When Circia offers comfort, the boy declines, stating he simply wants to rest in the quiet of the night. Watching Enoch's distant expression, Circia struggles to find the right words to bridge the growing emotional gap between them. Enoch reveals his father, Edward, collapsed upon hearing news of Aunt Dana, causing the shocked Circia to gasp in alarm. The silver-haired boy explains he refuses to cry because it would only break the hearts of his already worried family. Stunned by his maturity and self-restraint, Circia can only stare at her friend in a moment of silent, heavy shock. Circia asks if he is truly okay, her voice soft as she tries to understand the heavy weight he carries. Enoch looks up at the leaves, noting they rarely speak anyway, so his mother's absence feels like a familiar distance. Circia whispers his name, her heart heavy with pity for the boy who tries so hard to remain completely unaffected. The two children sit together in the blue-toned darkness, a heavy, somber silence hanging over the quiet forest floor. Enoch stares upward, his pale eyes reflecting a deep and hidden sorrow he refuses to show the rest of the world. Sitting up, Enoch listens as Circia calls Aunt Dana mean for breaking her promise to return home to him. Circia passionately defends Enoch, reminding him of the intense training and effort he put in just for his mother's sake. Enoch is momentarily confused by her mention of training laps, but Circia quickly refocuses her frustration back on his mother. Trembling, Enoch agrees that his mother should have fought to return, no matter how difficult the circumstances were for her. Circia shouts that her presence was vital simply because she is his mother, her anger echoing through the dark trees. A flash of realization hits Circia as she senses a deep, boiling anger within Enoch directed at his own mother. Bang! A vision of a past life erupts as a hand slams a table, demanding to know why someone works for trash. A detective confronts the black-haired Yoon Do-yoon, urging him to seek revenge against the man who killed his mother. Slumped over the table, Yoon Do-yoon listens as the woman promises to help him put the culprit in jail forever. With a cynical smirk, Yoon Do-yoon reveals his mother was corrupt, taking money from the very man the detective hates. He coldly asks why he would ever want to avenge a woman like that, regardless of her sudden death. Yoon Do-yoon's eyes harden as he declares his true desire is not to avenge his mother, but to have revenge on her. Gasping, Cercia clutches her chest as the dark memory fades and she returns to the current, silent night. The red-haired girl chides herself for comparing Enoch to Yoon Do-yoon, promising to never make that mistake ever again. Enoch confirms his own plan for revenge, leaving Cercia bewildered by the intensity of the 7-year-old boy's resolve. He vows to become the Emperor's sword, just to make his mother regret leaving him, promising never to forgive her. Relief washes over Cercia as she realizes Enoch's revenge is actually quite innocent and cute compared to her grim past. Enoch issues a challenge, telling Cercia he will get stronger and that she needs to step up her training too. Pow! Serious chibi form fumes with annoyance, thinking Enoch is the exact type of boy who makes girls want to punch him. Birds scatter over the grand castle as Cercia sighs, realizing Enoch's stubbornness is a core part of his character. Huff! Years pass as a grown Cercia collapses onto the training ground floor, her breath coming in heavy gasps. Sweating and exhausted, the red-haired woman looks up, the intensity of her training visible in her sharp, determined eyes. Clink! A tall, adult Enoch approaches with his sword, calling Cercia's name as a new era of their rivalry begins. Cercia Emblem, age 18, pants heavily while gripping her sword, determined to continue despite her clear exhaustion. Frustrated, the red-haired Cercia notes that her opponent has grown significantly stronger and much taller during their time apart. Scowling in annoyance, Cercia struggles to catch her breath as she reflects on the difficulty of the recent match. The vast, stone-pillared training hall is illuminated by torches as the sounds of a fierce battle echo throughout. Clang! Metal strikes metal with explosive force as two blades collide in a blurry display of high-speed swordplay. Cercia lunges forward with her golden-hilted blade, engaging in a relentless duel against a shadowy, cloaked figure. Breathing hard, Cercia stands before the masked Shadow Knight, who remains poised and silent after their intense skirmish. Cercia mocks the direct guard knight for having too many openings before declaring that their training session is finished. Click! The mysterious Shadow Knight secures his sword into its scabbard as the sparring session concludes in the torchlight. The masked knight stands perfectly still, his features hidden by a tight cloth wrap while embers float around him. Cercia lies defeated on the ground, reflecting on the insurmountable gap between a genius and mere hard work. Panting, Cercia accepts her familiar defeat as the silver-haired Lord Enoch notes that the match has been decided. Enoch looks down with cold, empty eyes, his stoic expression weighing heavily on the exhausted and frustrated Cercia. Enoch supports Cercia as they walk together, leaving her confused by the change in his once readable thoughts. The silver-haired Enoch maintains a distant, unreadable expression as he looks back at his red-haired training partner. Enoch asks if Cercia can return home alone, and she quickly agrees, masking her true feelings with a smile. Watching Enoch walk away, Cercia wonders when the power gap between them grew so impossibly wide and discouraging. The two walk in opposite directions on the stone grounds, the distance between them symbolic of their diverging paths. Feeling pathetic and discouraged, Cercia hugs herself. Cercia hugs herself, her eyes downcast as she dwells on her repeated losses. A familiar voice calls out her name, causing Cercia to look up in surprise and curiosity at the interruption. Lord Enoch stands tall and serious, stating that he has something specific to ask the young red-haired noblewoman. Stunned, Cercia blinks at him, her golden eyes wide as she tries to process his sudden and direct question. Enoch turns his back and walks away, leaving a bewildered Circia standing alone in the bright, sunlit courtyard. Scratch! Frustrated beyond belief, Circia vigorously rubs her hair, her anger boiling over after the brief encounter with Enoch. Eyes glowing with manic fury, Circia realizes it has been a long time since she felt this truly enraged. Panic erupts at the estate as knights flee in terror from the approaching, wrathful presence of Lady Circia. Charging forward, Circia chases Zeke and Lucas, who scream for mercy while running for their lives from her. Grinning like a demon, Circia demands a combat-realistic spar, while the terrified knights fear they will actually die. Circia roars that she will let them live, while a bystander notes that nobody wants to spar with her. The brown-haired Duke walks through the mansion, accompanied by a servant, as the sounds of Circia's rampage echo. The servant nervously mentions that Circia is always more aggressive after her sparring matches with Lord Enoch. The brown-haired man listens thoughtfully to the report about Circia's recent state of mind and increased combat aggression. Deciding to take action, the Duke orders the servant to contact his wife regarding their daughter's troubling behavior. Circia examines her face in a mirror, noticing the dark circles under her eyes caused by her obsessive training. Covered in bandages and exhausted, Circia considers seeking new training partners outside the mansion to improve her skills. Looking at her bandaged hand, Circia reflects on her isolation and her hatred for the gossip surrounding her. A historical document illustrates the public's constant focus on Circia's repeated losses compared to Enoch's inevitable victories. Circia pinches the bridge of her nose, lamenting how Enoch continues to grow while she feels completely stagnant. Tap, tap! A sudden knock on the door interrupts Circia's internal monologue as someone calls out her name. Startled, Circia peeks through the doorway and is overjoyed to realize her mother has unexpectedly returned home. Melcia stands in the hallway with a warm smile, greeting her daughter as light spills into the room. With a joyful cry, Circia throws herself into her mother's arms, finding comfort in their long-awaited protective embrace. In a cute chibi moment, Melcia explains she dropped everything to see Circia because she missed her so much. Circia feels all her worries melt away, realizing that in front of her mother, she can finally be carefree. Melcia asks if Circia's father failed to contact her, causing Circia to sweat nervously at being caught in a lie. Realizing this situation is obvious, Circia looks away while her mother maintains a knowing and amused expression. Melcia playfully guides her bandaged daughter, who insists she did nothing wrong despite her mother's lighthearted teasing. Circia asks her mother to stop pushing her as they head toward the sofa to discuss her recent behavior. Sitting together, Melcia asks why Circia is tormenting the knights, while Circia claims she just wants serious training. Circia argues passionately that training must be like real combat to prepare for war, much to her mother's concern. Melcia encourages her daughter, suggesting that struggling through challenges is exactly how one becomes truly powerful. Circia looks away as her mother identifies her deep-seated desire to accelerate her growth and combat strength. Closing her eyes, Circia listens as Melcia pinpoints her frustration regarding her seemingly slow progress compared to others. Thud. Circia bows her head in shame, the weight of her perceived inadequacy pressing down on her spirit. Slumped on the sofa, Circia laments being much slower in talent than her mother or her legendary grandfather. Circia's greatest fear surfaces. She dreads being the first emblem to suffer a humiliating defeat at Enoch's hands. Melcia looks on with deep sympathy, reaching out to offer comfort to her exhausted and bandaged daughter. Circia recalls a childhood promise where she declared her love for the sword, wondering where that passion stands now. Tears well in Circea's eyes as she struggles with the realization that her dedication hasn't yielded the expected results. Clutching her chest, Circea feels a sense of betrayal, as if the sword itself has chosen Enoch over her. Frustrated, Circea cries out that she never wants to experience love again if it only leads to this pain. Melzia waits patiently for the outburst to end before calmly asking if Circea is finished with her dramatic venting. Challenged by her mother, Circea eagerly offers to perform any grueling physical task to prove her worth and dedication. Melzia drops a bombshell, ordering Circea to attend a birthday party and dance instead of training with her sword. Bewildered and sweating, Chibi Circea learns her father will be her dance instructor to prepare for the social event. Melzia paints a picture of the grand expectations awaiting her, reminding Circea that many eyes will be watching. Wow, Sirius' world spirals into a colorful void of shock as the horrifying reality of a ballroom debut sinks in. The scene shifts to the vast, elegant ballroom where Circea's father waits to begin their first formal lesson. Looking down from above, the Duke approaches Circea, ready to transform the fierce warrior into a graceful lady. Circea stands frozen, her golden eyes wide with apprehension as she faces an opponent she cannot defeat with a blade. The Duke offers a warm, encouraging smile and his hand, inviting his daughter to join him on the dance floor. Noting her obvious lack of enthusiasm, her father gently teases Circea about her sour expression and rigid posture. Circea bluntly argues that the world of parties and banquets is completely incompatible with her nature as a fighter. Thwack! Her father delivers a sharp verbal jab, pointing out that she isn't exactly succeeding with the sword either. Stung by the truth, Circea defensively questions if learning to dance is truly a productive use of her time. Circea looks away, her brow furrowed as she continues to doubt the connection between social grace and combat skill. The Duke remains unmoved by her protests, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with Circea's visible nervousness and frustration. Using a classic guilt trip, the Duke sighs dramatically about his rejected efforts, causing Circea to immediately fold and agree. Seeing her father's triumphant smirk, Circea realizes she has been cleverly manipulated into participating in the dance practice. Circea huffs in annoyance as her father pushes her into position, noting he shares her mother's stubborn, forceful nature. A gramophone sits ready as the Duke reminisces about his days as Melzia's own practice partner for the ballroom. Click. The Duke starts the music and asks Circea for an honest update on her mother's current state. A moment of quiet reflection passes as Circea considers her mother's influence on her path and her recent return. Her father issues a stern warning, stating that true swordsmanship shouldn't crumble just because of a few dance steps. Circea grips her dress tightly, her resolve hardening as she searches for a breakthrough within this unexpected training. Burning with renewed determination, Circea vows to work as hard at dancing as she does at any combat drill. Her father watches her with a look of pride and affection, satisfied that he has successfully motivated his daughter. Sunlight bathes the grand estate as the day of the social event finally arrives, marked by blooming white roses. Music and chatter fill the decorated hall where noble guests have gathered to celebrate a young lady's coming of age. The birthday girl, Olivia Boldmore, bites her thumb nervously, desperate for Circea to fulfill her promise and attend. Olivia Boldmore, age 18, stands amidst a mountain of gifts, her anxiety growing despite the lavish surroundings and celebrations. A noblewoman offers shallow praise for the beautiful party, but Olivia remains distracted by her wait for a specific guest. The guest continues to flatter the Boldmore family, though Olivia barely hears the compliments through her mounting social dread.
Snap! Lizzie Vanderwell closes her fan with a sharp gesture, delivering a snide remark about Olivia's supposed independence. Olivia's face darkens with anger as she realizes the brown-haired Lizzie is intentionally mocking her in front of others. Hiding behind her fan, Lizzie gossips about the circulating rumors regarding the guest of honor's expected arrival. The tension spikes as Lizzie mentions Lady Circia Emblem by name, questioning if a high-ranking noble would actually attend. With a mock-polite bow, Lizzie continues to torment Olivia, pretending her insults are born from genuine eagerness and expectation. Whip! Lizzie delivers a final parting shot, leaving a devastated Olivia to wonder if Circia has truly abandoned her. Olivia sits in miserable isolation, enduring Lizzie's cruel suggestion that her party is too insignificant for someone like Circia. Mocking the situation, the brown-haired Lizzie smiles, claiming a lady should simply ignore such pathetic and obvious delusions. Olivia grips her dress in silent fury, swearing to never forget the humiliation Lizzie caused on her 18th birthday. Gasping in shock, Olivia's eyes widen as a cry erupts through the hall, announcing Lady Circia's grand arrival. The sound of hurried footsteps causes guests to turn in surprise, sensing a powerful presence finally entering the ballroom. Dressed in a dashing blue and gold suit, the short-haired Circia makes a confident entrance down the grand stairs. Radiating a newfound elegance, Circia offers a calm and enigmatic smile as she stands amidst the beautiful floral decorations. Overwhelmed with relief and awe, Olivia stares at her friend in disbelief, her heart pounding as she whispers Circia's name. Guests whisper frantically, stunned that the legendary and reclusive Lady Circia actually chose to attend a social event. Peeking from behind a purple curtain, a young noble girl desperately tries to catch a glimpse of the famous visitor. Suddenly, the little girl stumbles and falls forward, tumbling toward the floor right in the middle of Circia's path. A sharp close-up captures the child's wide-eyed panic as she realizes her embarrassing mistake in front of the entire crowd. Moving with a warrior's grace, Circia catches the girl effortlessly, while the child stammers out a wide-eyed, grateful thank you. Softening her sharp warrior demeanor, Circia gently pats the little girl's head, offering a rare moment of tender, silent reassurance. Standing tall, Circia flashes a brilliant, princely smile that captivates every noble guest watching her from across the ballroom. Noblewomen nearby faint from overwhelming lovesickness, leaving the oblivious Circia completely unaware of the romantic chaos her appearance causes. Circia stands before the seating area, her striking and unconventional masculine attire dominating the room's attention and quiet whispers. With a dazzling, joyous expression, Circia approaches her friend, looking every bit the dashing savior Olivia had desperately hoped for. Blushing deeply, Olivia is left breathless and flustered by the intense, handsome charm radiating from her surprisingly transformed friend. Lizzie suddenly interjects, greeting Circia with a bold, excited cry, while claiming it has been far too long since they met. Olivia glares with murderous jealousy as she watches the intrusive Lizzie try to steal Circia's attention for herself. Standing with a hand on her hip, Lizzie dramatically claims she has been hurt, forcing her way into the conversation. Olivia watches in fury as Lizzie boldly reaches out, demanding a humiliating hand kiss from the guest of honor, Circia. Circia looks on with a bewildered expression, while a voice in the background questions if Lizzie has actually gone insane.